Hey everyone, it's Miserable Movie Man back once again with another video. This is going to be a review of Night King, the film that came out around Chinese New Year, set in the world of hostess bars around East TST. And that is something I'm not familiar with at all, so I was interested to see how this film portrayed that lifestyle and the folks involved in it. And of course, this is my review as a expat living in Hong Kong, so in terms of some of the culture, some of the language, maybe it was stuff that I didn't quite fully get, but let's delve into it now. So Night King is from the team that brought you Guilty Conscience, which was a very interesting courtroom drama a few years ago, which I had seen and I enjoyed. And this is their sort of next film, follow-up to that. And it's a film set in the world of hostess bars around East TST area. Not Jordan, not Yamate, not Mongkok, but specifically East TST. And apparently all the hostess bars used to be there in the 1980s. It was a huge, or maybe 90s, a thriving area, thriving business. But it seems they're all dying out somewhat. And sort of the last bastion, there are a couple of clubs run by the folks who are in this film. So just a quick note, spoilers will occur in this review. So if you haven't seen the film, go watch it first and then come back and let me know what you think. But it stars Dale Wong, who was in Guilty Conscience and also a film I really enjoyed, The Last Dance. And essentially, he plays Foon, who is the sort of manager of the EJ Hostess Club in East TST. And Dale Wong, whenever I've seen him in any film, he basically plays himself. He's almost like the Denzel Washington of the Hong Kong film scene. He's essentially playing, a nightclub manager with a heart of gold who cares for his people and is trying to do the best he can, even though he's a little bit unscrupulous in some ways. But it's almost strong morals, strong convictions, cares about the little people, wants to do good, wants to make people feel good and do good by them. And that was the same character he had in The Last Dance. It was the same character he had in Guilty Conscience. So I don't know whether he picks these roles or they're written for him. But, as I said, he's almost playing himself in every film. And it's got Sammy Cheng as his ex-wife, Madame V, who comes in and, works with him to take over the club, and then things ensue. Now, I'll say that I watched the director's cut. I did not know there was a director's cut. I looked at IMDb and it says the film is 2 hours and 7 minutes long. But the director's cut, I think, was nigh on 3 hours. And first off the bat, that's just too long for me. I spoke to my wife, who is local, and she said that when the film came out, people said that the actresses who were playing the hostesses were really good and they didn't get enough screen time, so people were asking for more, and hence the director's cut was released. Now, I think you can have too much of a good thing, and there are too many sort of individual characters in this film whose threads and plot lines really don't need to be showcased. If you want to get them to showcase their acting ability, then write that into the scene, but adding the padding for showcasing each one of these individuals was a little bit unnecessary for me, a little bit over the top. The film definitely dragged. 3 hours is a long time where there aren't a huge amount of things going on, so I thought the film was a bit padded, a bit bloated. I would have preferred the 2 hour 7 minute version. Maybe I'll watch that and see what the differences were. I will say though, the actresses were good, the actresses did well, actors did well. It was an enjoyable film for me. I didn't think this film was amazing by any stretch of the means. I think The Last Dance was far better, and A Guilty Conscience was also much better too for me as well. I think what it came down to was the plot was a little bit, it's a bit too thin to drive it for that long. You have a guy, you have the people around him. I think the fact that they had storylines for each person, as I said, was too bloated. But you could have maybe focused on a couple of them in more detail to maybe care about them. Really, you only care about Foon and Madame V. And honestly, they don't portray anyone in a particularly good light apart from Foon. So it's one of those things where, if the main character is really the only person that is on screen that kind of makes the audience get involved and invested in, the film is not strong. It doesn't hold up so well. Like Madame V, played by Sammy Cheng, she had a good role in the ex-wife of Foon, and she comes in, she's a little bit unscrupulous in some ways, she poaches his hostesses, she takes over the club. She does a business deal behind his back to try and, get the club and stuff. So she wasn't given a sympathetic note in any way. And then as the film progresses and you learn more about her, there isn't really enough information there to make you care about her as a character. Maybe it was written more from a male perspective. I don't know. But it's certainly, she's the tough girl boss that hates men and, doesn't hate men, but she doesn't trust men and doesn't take any crap from anyone, and has pulled herself up from nothing. It's going to make it in this world. So yeah, I get it, but then you need to show. There was one scene where she really showed the human side of her character, but apart from that, it was all girl boss, tough lady stuff, and that isn't something to get an audience to be sympathetic about. And then you have all the individual characters. The basic plot, to summarize it, is Foon's ex-wife comes in, takes over the club, and then this really rich guy, Mr. Fong, I guess, he's going to buy it, and his son, who starts off nice and turns into a really shady, bad character, is going to screw them over to double his money by getting them to pay the guarantee to buy the club, and then he's going to buy the club anyway. So essentially, he's just doing a deal to mess them over. And the film starts with somebody coming in to take over the club. But then it cuts to three months earlier, where Madame V comes in to take over the club. So it's almost the same scene. You get the preamble at the start of introducing people, introducing the lifestyle, introducing the guys coming in and the sort of types of services they're getting. But yeah, it was almost a repeated scene. So again, the intro had impact, but then when Madame V comes and does the same thing, that impact is completely gone. And then at the end, you're waiting to see what happens, and something where you think, I've seen this before, I get it, right? So I think the film starts off in an interesting way, but then kind of quickly devolves into a standard fare. Now, of course, a lot of this is about the relationship between Madame V and Foon, who are, husband and wife before and separated now. And they show elements of that relationship, of caring for each other. Again, it portrays Madame V as much harsher than Foon. She's a tough businesswoman. She'll let anyone go. She only cares about profits, not people. And Foon is one of those guys who's, having a great party lifestyle, but, he cares about his girls, even though he's sleeping with most of them, or has slept with them at some point. And happily still does, if he needs a release. So from that perspective, it was an interesting lifestyle that is not well known or experienced or common to a lot of people, certainly myself. But seeing it, I thought it could have touched upon a lot more of the human elements in it. Now, Foon comes under stress in the start because he hasn't enough girls and there are people coming in, and apparently he can't call for more, so he has to figure out ways to keep the customers busy. And those intricacies, those little details of that scene of this is how you do it, this is how you make someone wait, or don't clean the room, make it smell, make them want to leave, or have 2 girls servicing 3 guys instead of 5 girls for 2 guys, or whatever it is. That was an interesting kind of delve into that world. But you got to make those elements pay off. If you're going to have that strategy implemented, you got to see the payoffs, you got to see the impact, you got to see the effects of how it works as the customer coming in and going, oh, this room is smelly, I don't want it, or some of the girls figuring out how they talk to guys when there's not enough of them. So I didn't think they did that amazingly well, just having set up the introduction, the payoff wasn't there. And of course the rest of the film is about the deal of them getting screwed by Prince Fong, who's in love with, well, I guess he's not really in love with her, he treats her like crap, but trying to make Louise Wong, who plays Coco, as his main lady, and they have to figure out how to get out from the deal because he has made Madame V sign something, so she's now the guarantor for the 80 million deal. And Foon and Madame V have to try and figure out how to get the money. And Madame V sells all her stuff. She sells the car, she sells the flat, and she's only got 10 million left. And Foon, who is the man with the heart of gold, he sells or he mortgages his place, so he's got another 10 million. And that gives them 20, so they're still 60 million short. And they have to figure out how to get the rest of the money. I thought the way that they did it, which was like a big con at the end to screw over Prince Fong and get the money back, was a bit too contrived. Yeah, they tried to go for a Secret of My Success / Ocean's 11 / Trading Places type of film. And I don't think it quite succeeded. Obviously, they had to try and introduce some tension in it. with one of the girls who was being coached dropping her earpiece. 3 phases of the plan. Let's see how that works. And it was a bit too much for me. I think with the folks coming in there, the clientele, the wealth of the people coming in, and also maybe his gangster connections for Foon and other people, they could have made that more interesting. They could have had other ways to try and get the money or to try and outwit Prince Fung. But they went for this big con style at the end, and it just was okay for me. It wasn't spectacular. It didn't really work that well from the execution element, but it was just okay. But as I said, this film is kind of a mix of what it tries to be. Is it trying to be heartfelt drama? Is it trying to be a look into this world of folks who go and work in these places? Is it trying to be a high-stakes con film where they have to do a big heist thing at the end? That kind of confusion was a bit too much for me. And of course, I watched the director's cut, which I think was pushing 3 hours. I thought it was going to be 2 hours, 7 minutes. It didn't work out very well for all the old people who were watching the film with me. They had to go to the bathroom a number of times. They had to shuffle out and in quite a few times. But I think, again, like each of those ladies had a little storyline to showcase their acting ability or their talent, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make me care about them. It wasn't enough to have them primarily and prominently focused in the story. Not enough kind of empathy or association with their characters. I didn't identify with many of them. So I think they could have focused on a few. Now, again, there's some human elements in it. There's some drama. There's some parts where people are in love with each other. And I did think this film had some really nice, very well written and touching scenes. And I think that was going to be obvious from the team, because in the previous 2 films they did, The Last Dance and A Guilty Conscience, they had some strong, good emotional scenes in there. But I think those scenes were shoehorned in a bit too much. They felt out of place. It was quite jarring. It's almost as if they went tension, high stakes, emotional scene. Tension, high stakes, emotional scene. And really, with Madame V, you only see a breakdown once. The rest of the time, she is, harsh lady boss. And I think this, by the end of the film, she's starting to like the girls a bit more, and she's starting to gravitate towards them and care about them a little bit. Maybe that was in the director's cut, but initially she's all about the money, right? And then you see her just thawing a little bit, but still, that there were enough elements of those emotional scenes to be really well made. But again, they were just thrown in at different places. The pacing seemed off. The tension was broken in a way. That build up, that crescendo, that emotional climax wasn't as strong as it could have been by the fact that it was meandering. So again, I really like those emotional scenes, those touching scenes. Some of the lines were very well written, but it didn't have the sort of consistency and the payoff that I think would have worked well in the film. And of course, at the end, they get the money and they still get closed down, and so they move over to Central because, every dawn comes after the night, and they figure out a way to keep going with the money they made. And I can attest to that as somebody who came to Hong Kong in 2011. LKF was crazy every night, loads of diverse people everywhere. It's changed now. It's a lot more for sort of mainland tourists and locals, I would say. A lot of the bigger LKF places have closed down. And maybe this is the way it's going to keep money and keep active going forward. So I don't know too much about that scene, so let me know if that's true in the comments. But it was one of those endings where I think, it could have been stronger. They delved a little bit into the characters, but I think if they'd focused on 1 or 2 of the girls a bit more, would have been better. And had a little bit more with Madame V. Again, she was one of those characters where maybe you can relate to her, and she does thaw a bit at the end, but there wasn't much to like about her. And I think, with Foon, he was the main guy, and he was the person everyone was rooting for because he was a gangster with a heart of gold. And his number 2 was quite funny. His number 2 guy, I can't remember his name, or actor or character, but he was just there for the comic relief, just there to put jokes in. So again, if you wanted a joke, he's going to say something silly, and it got a bit too obvious at times. But I think overall the film was decent. I would give it maybe 6.5 for me. Quite a few of the jokes in Cantonese didn't land with me. The English translations were not as funny. I heard people chuckling in the cinema, and I looked at the English translation, and it wasn't that funny to me. So clearly, more cultural jokes, more local jokes that I didn't get. So maybe if you're local and you understand the language and the culture and the humor, You might give this film a 7, maybe 7.5. I don't know. I think one thing they did miss, though, because they did talk about the reason men go to these places. They talk about the reason a man goes is for his dignity. He doesn't get dignity at home, either through respect from his wife or time alone, or respect from his children, or people making him feel good about himself, or people caring about what he has to say and interested in his opinion. That dignity that's lacking is something that they talked about, but I don't think they expounded on it enough. They should have expanded on it way more, and they could have explored it a lot more to see, what is the mentality of these folks that go to these places. I think that was a missed opportunity for me. But I guess they wanted to focus on the staff and the owners. And also, again, like Foon with his heart of gold, there's one guy who comes back, he doesn't have any money. They're like, oh, come back when you're having tough times, we'll celebrate with you. When you're having good times, we'll celebrate you. When you're having tough times, we'll celebrate with you. And when you're having tough times, the bottle is free and we'll give you free services. Is that really how these places work? I am honestly not sure. I don't know if a business would give you, free access to these ladies and free alcohol and all these things. Oh yeah, just pay it back when you have more money. That's how we're like that. We're good like that. That seemed a little bit contrived to me. But overall, an enjoyable film. I'm not sure I would watch this in the cinema. I think this is a good film to watch on a Saturday night at home. Maybe with your partner if you have a strong relationship. If you don't, maybe this will give either one of you some ideas. I don't know, but certainly okay film. I enjoyed it. Maybe not, did not enjoy it as much as the last two. And again, like one weird scene they threw in there, the dancing scene. Let's put on the music and everyone dance, and that just seems so weird and so forced. And half of these ladies can't dance, so don't put them on the screen dancing if they're gonna dance like that. It's just such a weird distraction in the middle of the movie. That was a strange choice for me, but they could have celebrated in a different way. They could have celebrated with alcohol or with food or something. That would have been more fun. But just maybe an excuse to get these women dancing. I don't know. But let me know what you think. Obviously, I didn't know the language and I don't know this world very well or the culture. So did I miss anything? Did you relate more? Did you identify with these characters more than I did? I don't know whether the ladies you're going to identify with, the ladies working there or the managers of the places or even the rich folks who have too much money to burn. But I certainly didn't identify with any of them in that way. And maybe that's why the film wasn't as strong an impact on me. So if you did, that's great. Let me know what you think. Did I miss any of the cultural impact? Did I miss any of the cultural nuances? Let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, please like, share and subscribe to help support the channel. And catch you next time.